Hey there, I'm Rebecca with the Connext Exchange, and I am here with Susan Lane to continue the conversation around expectations and what were you expecting? So, Susan, welcome, and thanks so much for leading us in this rich conversation. How do expectations show up in your life, and why was this a topic you wanted to bring to Connext?
Yeah, well, thank you. It was wonderful to hear other people's perspectives on how expectations kind of snag them or unassumingly something comes up for them. But the reason it was important for me is it's been an area that has really gotten me stuck so many times in a way that maybe we don't really think about. And those were the expectations that I put on myself that I assume other people have of me. So I've played this game of who am I here and how do I need to show up for this person in an unhealthy way. It's been at my expense rather than really a way where you know that you're supposed to do something and you want to certainly show up your best. But I would play this mental gymnastics of, well, they need to see me this way and I need to show up that way so that I'm okay and that they see me as, you're good. So that's just where it's really played a role in my life, and it's not been helpful. And I've broken free from that for the most part. So I wanted to hear what other people had to say about expectations in general.
Yeah, I think what was interesting for me in the conversation is this word expectations. We have maybe a dictionary definition and then our personal relationship with it, but how vast and big the spectrum was as to our expectations. Negative? Are they positive? Are they harmful? Are they helpful? And it felt like a key part of that was really communication and owning your own thoughts and emotions. But I wonder for you, what stuck out in the conversation around, our expectations, good or bad, or how do we manage them in a healthy way?
Yeah, and I don't think they are. I don't think we can label them good or bad. We do, but I don't think we need to, because really they are just what they are. It's part of the human experience. But when we become more aware of what an expectation that we might be holding does to us, and really what that ends up doing to us and relationships that are, in our lives, that's when we need to really pay more attention. And one of the things that came up in the conversation is someone had said how expectation is very similar to or can lead to entitlement. You have an expectation, therefore you feel entitled to have it resolve in some situation the way you want it to be. And although, again, that's not inherently bad to expect a certain outcome, it's that entitlement, and that's really directed at our ego. It's all about me. It has to be my way. And that's when it gets messy. So good, bad, not necessarily. Messy, absolutely. And when we are able to really pay attention to what's going on within us, and we do get those cues, we get cues probably in our body a lot faster than we do in our brain. And if we can be more in tune to what's happening, we can slow that process down a little bit and see really what is happening. And even that came up in some of the conversation, where kind of taking a step back and listening for what is really happening and try to change the message that's in our minds. So if it's something where we're starting to feel these negative emotions about something not going the way we wanted it to go, being able to take ownership of that feeling and look at it from a different perspective for ourselves. Certainly there's times when things have to happen and we need to make sure that they happen in a certain way, but that's more along the lines of an agreement, not an expectation. What feels to me like an expectation is that there hasn't necessarily been enough communication to know, are both parties in agreement? Because if both parties are in agreement, certainly if one doesn't fulfill their end of the bargain, there needs to be a discussion about that. But it's a very different feeling than having that entitled perspective.
Yeah, for sure. There's a difference between maybe engaging in a contractual agreement where you lay out, here's my responsibilities, here are your responsibilities. We've mutually set expectations. And then when they're not met, there's a course of action. And what you're talking about, as we're going about life, expecting perhaps people to behave the way we think they should, like our personal right book, and that can lead to that entitlement piece. So if someone finds themselves in that position, what guidance, what thoughts do you have for them? How do you deal with that when you recognize it?
Yeah, and that is the key, is recognizing, because who always comes up with agreements in every relationship, like, this is how I'm going to act, this is how you're going to act? That just wouldn't feel comfortable. But so things will come up in our lives, and usually with those closest to us, it's going to rub us the wrong way, and we're going to notice that there is an expectation or something that hasn't been met. And if we look at an acronym that can kind of help define that, and it's called HALT. And when you halt in that moment, so something has happened and you notice that your body is starting to react, your blood starts to boil a little bit, you feel the endorphins coming in, and you want to launch in and tell people, like you said, you didn't meet all these things. And we all have those feelings. But if you halt in a moment and then give yourself time, so the H stands for hush. And really, that it's not hush. You're not telling the other person to. You're telling yourself to hush the voices, hush that rumination of how right you are and how wrong they are and how much you're upset about it, because that's not going to help the situation. There may truly be something that has to be addressed. And it doesn't mean that you just say, okay, it doesn't matter. But hushing those voices that just keep you agitated and spinning brings the cortisol levels down. It quiets your brain so that you can then take the next step, which would be A, and it's accept it. And when I say accept it, it also does not mean that if something is truly wrong, that you just accept it and forget about it. It means accept the situation as it is right now. Because if you want something to be different in the future, okay, that's fine, but that's not happening right now. And what's already occurred, you can't do anything about. So just accept it without judgment, so that, again, you can look at it rationally and say, what really happened here? What is my role in fixing this? What is the other person's role in coming together with me? And do we want to do that? And that opens up then the door for L, and you can listen. And that's something that we can, it's a skill that you have to really work on, because it's easy to listen to respond, as opposed to listen to really hear the message. Listen to what your own body and mind are telling you about the situation. Now that you've calmed yourself, you're not going to be as quick to say, I'm right, I have to have it this way. But really listen to what is going on. And then T is to talk. Because once you've calmed yourself, you've accepted the situation for what it is in the moment, and you're willing to listen, when you do talk, it's not going to come from a place of demanding your way. It's not going to put somebody else on the defensive. It's really developed to bring community. And that's truly, I think, what we all want to have, is community. When we have expectations and they're not met, it starts to break that down.
Yeah, and can force space and push us apart. So halt, hush, accept it, listen, and then talk. Now, do you think that works when it comes to expectations of ourselves? And where do expectations meet up with kind of goal setting? Again, this is kind of a big thing, but when we're expecting something of ourselves and we don't live up to it, do you think HALT can work there too, or do you have another approach? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it can. It's a lot harder. I think generally we are our own worst critic, and it is a lot easier for us to just beat ourselves up, but it does work. And it takes practice. And that's the thing, is it takes a lot of practice to be in tune to those messages that you're telling yourself. We make mistakes. we're not always the shining star, although everybody wants an award. We're not always going to be the best at something, but that's okay. As long as we are in tune to what messages are we feeding ourselves, because that's probably the best time to practice halting that message. Because the more we continue to repeat anything that is negative, if we didn't meet our own expectation of who we are and where we want to be, we're going to create further distance to becoming our best selves. Because when we beat ourselves up, I mean, think in terms of, if somebody was to beat you up as much as you beat yourself up, how much time would you want to spend with them? Would you spend time with them, or would you put distance? And you can't put distance from yourself, but you can treat yourself, really well by practicing these skills.
Yeah. And HALT is good too, because I just think we all can benefit from the reminder of slow down. We get into autopilot, and that's when things can really run wild, especially thoughts.
I don't know anything about that.
So thank you so much for introducing that acronym to us and encouraging us to think a little more about expectations instead of just expecting things. So Susan, I know that you are a certified life and health coach. So if someone is interested in this topic or your services, how can they reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to have conversations with people, as well as help them overcome some blind spots that they may have in any of these areas. So they can reach out to me at susan@lanechangers.com. I'm on all of the social media platforms, Susan L. Lane. You can find me Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Certainly reach out and welcome any conversation that we could have.
Yes. And Susan is active on all of those sites. So she's a good follow and a great connection. And thank you so much again, Susan, for your time and perspectives on this. And thank you all for watching. We hope that you will join us at a future Connext conversation every Thursday at 11:30 Eastern Time, live on Zoom. So we hope to see you in the future.